Hey Jupiter, it's great to have you here for the Sky Script YouTube channel. We got in touch a little while ago because I was very interested in bringing you into the fold to talk to us about the Chinese zodiac and some elements of Chinese astrology that Westerners may not be familiar with. And so we're very grateful to have you with us. And I can go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. So today we are going to talk about the Jupiter cycle and the Chinese zodiac, and to see the correspondence between the Chinese zodiac and the Western zodiac. So let's get started. Okay. So this is the animal sign. So maybe you might have known about your birth year and the animal signs. And this is the Chinese way of presenting the animal signs, and this is in a clockwise direction. And for example, this year it is 2024, and this is the year of the dragon. And next year, 2025, and that will be the year of the snake. So this is a kind of diurnal motion of or clockwise for presenting the Chinese zodiac. And this table shows the birth year. You can check out your birth year and see which animal sign that you are in. For example, if you were born in 1991, then you are a ram. Or if you were born in, say, 1965, then you are a snake. And this is a random table that you can easily get from Google or just from the internet. However, there is a very common misunderstanding about the beginning of the Chinese New Year. Indeed, in the Chinese way of doing the calendar, there are two ways. One is the lunar calendar, and the other is the solar calendar. For the lunar calendar, that usually marks the beginning of the Chinese New Year, which begins on the new moon. However, for Chinese astrology, it is following the solar calendar. So in one year, there are 24 solar terms. And according to the Chinese astrology, if you want to do the astrology instead of just the Chinese New Year, then the new year begins when the sun reaches 15 degrees of Aquarius, which means it is the start of spring in the Chinese solar terms. This is the start of spring. So if you are right on the borderline that you are confused whether you belong to the previous animal sign or the new animal sign of the new year, then you will check your sun sign. If you were born before Aquarius 15, then you are still in the previous animal sign. But then if you were born after Aquarius 15, then you are of the new animal sign. And so here we come to Jupiter, the planet. Several years before Christ, and this was the ancient time, the ancient astrologer in China, in ancient China, then they already discovered that Jupiter, the actual Jupiter, is like a year star. They call it the year star because it is for counting the year. As you may know, that Jupiter goes through the whole zodiac in 12 years. So it is like one sign per year. So that may be good, and that may be good for counting the year, one year, next year, so on. However, there is a problem. They found that there is a problem if we use Jupiter as the year star, because first, the Jupiter cycle is not exactly 12 years, but 11.86 years to go through the whole zodiac. So it might not be a good idea if we want to use Jupiter to count the year to fit in the human way of doing the calendar. So there is a difference here. And the other problem is the whole Chinese astrology is based on a diurnal motion, which means the Chinese zodiac, or you can see so that the celestial circle it is set, it is designed according to the diurnal motion of the sun, the moon, and the stars, instead of the secondary motion, like how the planets go through across the signs. So this is so contradictory to the actual Jupiter. So how the ancient astrologers do to solve that problems. And so now here you can see a chart with the sun and the clock. This is the clock, numbers is the clock. And so this is how the Chinese zodiac is set. So the sun rises in the east, and then it is around 6 o'clock in the morning. So when the sun rises in the east and go to the top above the sky and then descend in the west, then the sun is still following the ecliptic. And then so for the early time, that's from 5 o'clock to 7, then it is called the rapid hour, because the sun goes through the whole zodiac, I mean the whole circle in 24 hours. And we divided the 24 hours into 12 slots. For each slot, it is 2 hours.
This feels kind
So
of similar to how houses work in the Western system, right? Like you have these areas of the sky, and take a look at how the sun moves through the different houses. So if I'm understanding correctly, around the area of what we would call the ascendant, around the time that the sun is rising between 5 and 7 a.m., that would be the hour of the rabbit, and around noon, the hour of the horse. Is that right?
yes, correct. So indeed, it is quite similar to Western astrology in terms of house. But for Western astrology, the houses is there is some astronomical base. But here it is like just dividing the 24 hours into 12 parts and 2 hours despite of the position of the sun. So for every 2 hours, we call it a time slot. And each time slot, we call it is represented by a earthly branch. So the 12 slots, we have 12 earthly branches. And for convenience sake, we use the animal to name it. So from 5 to 7, that is the rabbit hour. 7 to 9, that is the dragon hour, etc. So we use the animal to name, or the earthly branches to name the time slot, but it is not really corresponding to the actual position of the sun, but just approximately. So this is the basic of how the celestial circle, or the Chinese astrology, the zodiac, how it is set. And so here we have a chart with more details that for each earthly branch, for example, the rabbit branch, it is, besides this is named as rabbit, indeed, it is one of the 5 elements. And for each element, there is yin and yang. So it is like positive wood or negative wood. And so here I show you that is, for example, the rabbit hour, it is a negative wood. For the dragon hour, it is the positive earth. And then for the snake hour, it is negative fire. So here for all the 12 slots, we have 5 elements. Each element there is positive and negative, which is the yin and yang. And altogether, we have 4 earths. So this is a little bit complicated because you can see for wood, fire, metal, and water, we have only 2. But for Earth, we have 4. Why is it so? Because it is also corresponding to season. So you can see that this zodiac, it is used for hour. It is also used for months and used for year. So everything is based on this celestial circle. So for example, the rabbit, tiger, and dragon, it is like in the morning, but they also represent the springtime. Snake, horse, and ram, it is representing like in the afternoon or the midday time, but they also represent the summertime. So fire is like a very hot time. So it is corresponding to summer. And you can see for each season, besides the corresponding element, there is an earth there, because by nature, earth is everywhere. So we assign earth to after every element, and for every three of them, they come to a season, just like the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs, something like that. So, any question or comment
Yeah,
about this?
let's talk a little bit about some of this. This is a great diagram. I'm appreciating the role that Earth plays in the quartering of the Chinese zodiac. Um, I'm interested in how the expression comes between positive and negative polarities of the same element according to Chinese astrology. So, for instance, we have the dragon, which is positive
Mm.
earth, and then we have the ram, which is negative earth. So, how do these zodiac signs take their meaning? Where does the element kind of come into play? I wonder if you could speak about that a little bit.
Yes, this is indeed quite similar to that in Western astrology. So I think the principles behind it is like cross culture. So it is like human civilization. They see the thing, the nature or the astronomy in very similar way.
Hmm.
For example, dragon. Dragon is the positive earth. So um, positive means outward, direct, active. So a positive earth is more productive, industrious, and a very practical earth. And dragon, and you can imagine that using dragon to describe something, then when we describe a branch, first we use the animal. Second, we use the element and the positive or negative way of expressing the element. So dragon, you can imagine, because this is the symbol for the emperor. So dragon means like success, leadership. And then being the positive earth is expressing its practicality and responsibility or productivity by being the positive earth. And then for Ram, indeed, I have studied quite a lot of how the Western books, um, like describing the ram or in the Chinese astrology. But somehow in the Chinese culture, the ram here, indeed, it is like more likely like the sheep,
Hmm.
which is more gentle and calm and cute, instead of really like the average type of ram.
Hmm.
But because I think like it is quite popular to say it is the year of the ram, so I use the ram here. But if you can imagine, the symbol itself is more like the sheep, more a gentle sheep. So that's why this is the negative earth or the feminine earth, which is more nurturing, supportive, and with more patience, grounding, and empathy. Because it's like a negative earth that it is like the soil that can, with all the trees and flowers grow on it.
Yeah. Okay, this is interesting. Um, in Western astrology, Western occultism generally, the elements are accorded the polarity. So fire,
Mm.
air are considered more active, water and earth considered more passive. So it's interesting to see these dynamics be shifted somewhat within the actual element itself. I wonder if we could take a look at another example, maybe the
Mm-hmm.
snake and the horse. These are two of the fire
Fire.
element signs. And I noticed the snake is a negative, horse is positive fire. Can you tell me a little bit about these and how this works?
Yes. For example, horse, as you can imagine, horse is very energetic, dynamic. And so the horse itself I think it is really a good representation of the positive fire, that it is very ambitious, charismatic, and motivating. And because the horse is so energetic, so it is the positive fire. While the snake is a negative fire because it is more intuitive, insightful, changeable, and it is also a symbol of wisdom.
Hmm.
Somehow it's like that in maybe in Egyptian culture,
Mm.
that the snake is not something really horrible, but it is an animal with a lot of wisdom. And so it is a negative fire. And it is interesting that in Western astrology, fire also symbolize spirit,
Mm.
symbolize energy.
Mm.
And I think they do not have really contradictory meaning here. They are quite similar. But just the snake is representing the more feminine side, which is about the wisdom and the intuition, while the horse represents the action, the motivation, and the dynamics of fire.
Right. So if somebody found out, for instance, that they might be, born in the year of the dog, I also
Mhm.
understand that the years have elements, right? So they might be born in the year of the water dog or the fire dog or earth dog. How does that connect in with this principle? I understand what we're looking at is, I think it's kind of like the standard or the baseline that's being shown here. So how does the yearly element factor into this?
So maybe you have heard about that there is like a metal dog, earth dog, whatever, because besides the earthly branches in the Chinese astrology when doing the birth chart, the four pillars, maybe you have heard about that. The four pillars, besides the earthly branches, there is also a part of it called heavenly stems.
Hmm.
So it is a mixture of different elements. So
And
for dogs, for different years of dogs, there are like different kind of element as the heavenly stem.
interesting.
So this add more complication, but this is how the calendar works. So we have 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches, and they come together with 60 altogether.
Wonderful.
60 combinations.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for answering those questions.
Okay, so let me go back to the Jupiter cycle that, as we said previously, that the ancient, they want to use the actual Jupiter to count the year like a counter, but they find the problems, as we said. So what did they do? So they invented a virtual god called Tai Sui in Chinese, but actually it means great commander. This is kind of a virtual god, so you can see there is a kind of religious element here. And so they invented virtual god as the counter of the year. So for example, this year, 2024, is Year of the Dragon, and this year, the commander is called General Li. So it is the general who is like the boss of this year. But this is a kind of religious thing. So it is like a religious element adding to the astrology.
And this was created because there was, just to bring back the point you were bringing before, because I know we went down a quick side route with the Chinese zodiac, that with Jupiter as the year star, when we look at our Western astrological system, Jupiter
Mm,
might move from Libra to Scorpio and then to
right.
Sagittarius into Capricorn, and so it moves in the direct
Anti-clockwise way.
anti-clockwise, but the Chinese zodiac is taking an appreciation of things moving clockwise. So this was a system that was created to kind of help count Jupiter's movement year by year, roughly. Is this
Yes, this
right
is
there?
following the same pattern, but this is one is clockwise, the other is anti-clockwise. But the concept is from the actual Jupiter because
Hmm.
they just find that because the actual Jupiter movement is different from this clockwise direction, so they need to invent something related to
Yeah.
use as a counter of the year.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And so this shows you that, for example, in the year of the monkey, that was we have this toy sway, and they have different we have different commanders for every year. And altogether, there are 60 great commanders or the virtual gods. And you can find these statues or these pictures in the temple. So here I want to show you how the actual Jupiter and how the commander moves each year. So this is 2017, for example, when Jupiter was in Libra. And that year, that was a year of rooster because Tai Sui was there. So it's the year of rooster, which corresponds to Taurus. In 2018, Jupiter was in Scorpio, and the commander was in Dog, which is the year of the dog, and dog corresponds to Aries. In 2019, Jupiter was in Sagittarius, and that was the year of the pig, and Tai Sui was in pig, and that was corresponding to Pisces. And so for this year, it is the year of the dragon. So the commander is here, and the actual Jupiter is now in Taurus. Of course, Jupiter is going to change sign to Gemini very soon. But then because this is the year counter, so we take Taurus for this year. So can you see the pattern behind that I'll show you like 4 years,
Yeah,
the how
it,
the actual Jupiter goes and the commander.
it's really incredible. The virtual god or the year, it just so happens it seems that like the year of the dragon, which is analogous to Libra, and Jupiter is in Taurus, they're both ruled by Venus. And I was noticing as you were moving through when the virtual god or Jupiter was in Scorpio, it was the year of the dog, which is corresponding with the other Mars sign. When Jupiter is in Sagittarius, it corresponds to Pisces, which is the other Jupiter sign. So the planetary rulers in the West are also reflected in this scheme completely independently in its own way.
Right. So when I discovered that, that was really amazing because I see some more uh, like relation between the two zodiac, the two system that I've never imagined about. And here we go. So in Chinese astrology, for the earthly branches, we have 12 earthly branches, but there is some like chemistry here. There are different ways of combining the earthly branches. So one of the ways we call six combinations. For the six combinations, we group every two branches together. And so despite of their original elements, when they combine together, they create or they form a new element. For example, when dragon combine with rooster, they become metal. When rabbit combine with dog, they become fire. When tiger combine with pig, they become wood. Ox and rat, earth, ram and horse, fire, snake and monkey, water. So what is more interesting here is, for example, dragon and rooster, they combine and become metal. So we can see metal correspond to Venus because like dragon corresponds to Libra and rooster correspond to Taurus. They are both ruled by Venus and they become the element of metal. And if anyone of you know a little bit about Chinese, it is very interesting. Literally, we call Venus in Chinese the metal planet. We call Mars in Chinese the fire planet. So exactly, it is just the same. We call the five elements. We use the five elements to name the five planets. And the sun is the yang, the moon is the yin. Then we have the whole system with the seven traditional planets. And it's so amazing that I find that we name the element and the planet, which is they are just the same, they are corresponding to each other.
I'm curious, yeah, this is incredible, and it launches so many questions about how much of this overlay might have been known, how much of it there's so much interest here. I'm curious about, I noticed that the air element isn't represented. How does that element, it seems like it's maybe not represented here or reimagined in a different way. Maybe it's split between fire and wood in some kind of way, the ways that we conceptualize that, or even water. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about the representation of air and it's missing from this model.
Ah, uh, air, maybe you can check this about how the five elements and the five planets and their meaning.
Right.
Right. So, for example, Mercury, it is the water element. So in the Chinese astrology, water corresponds to intelligence and is somehow related to Mercury. And so the element of metal is correspond to Venus, and it is about strength and righteousness, metal itself.
Mm.
And the element fire, it is Mars and it's about action and passion. Wood correspond to Jupiter, and this is growth and productivity. The Earth, the Saturn is practicality and stability.
Mm.
So we have five elements in Chinese astrology, but there are four only in Western astrology.
Mm. Yes.
But then, yes, I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe for the air sign, it is like hot and moist if you just like to make it in more details.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some correspondence with, indeed, the air sign we have, you can see here. It is like water, metal with dragon, with Libra, metal,
Yeah.
Aquarius, earth,
Right.
and
Water.
and monkey is water.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Wonderful. Thank you.
But then it is very interesting. I will talk about it a little bit later in a second, that in the combination, we have six combination here, but we have another kind of groupings, like grouping the three branches to make it one element. So if we combine Dragon Libra, Red Aquarius,
Mhm.
and Monkey Water, they become another element, which
Right.
is the the water elements. Let me
Mm.
check. Yes, this is the water elements. So the air signs in Western astrology they become water elements in
Interesting.
Chinese astrology.
Yeah. Interesting.
Maybe they represent intelligence. I think the common ground is it is about intelligence,
Mm.
about cleverness, about communication.
Right. Great. Thank you for answering that.
Okay, so here we have going to check whether you have good fortune or bad fortune in a particular year. So how do we do that? We have a very, very simple way. Of course, this is just like the sun sign, we use the animal sign. If you want to check whether you are having good fortune or bad fortune in a particular year, you need to see whether your animal sign is compatible with that of the year. For example, this is year of the dragon. So we'll have a table check in a second that you will see whether your sign is compatible with dragon. If you have a good relation with dragon, then you're compatible, then you'll be fortunate in this year. If there is a bad relation, it's not compatible, then this is not fortunate. And if you are in the same animal sign, that means if you were born in the dragon year and this year is the year of the dragon, then we call it is the offending the commander. That no matter which animal sign you are in, if you go back to your own animal sign, then you are offending the commander because he's the boss. Then it's said that you will have bad fortune. So this is a chart of compatibility you can check out. So for the first column, so this is the six combinations we just talked about, that when the two animals, indeed they are corresponding to the two Western astrology signs, then they are in good relations. So, for example, if you are dragon, then you go well with rooster. Okay, so this is the sixth combination. So we have another way of good compatibility. That's when the animals they are in a trine relationship, like tiger, dog, horse, rabbit, pig, ram. That is just like the air sign, the fire sign, and like which is exactly as in the which is just like exactly as in the Western Zodiac. If you make a trine relationship, the grand trine, they are in good relationship. So for animals, they are in bad relationship. That is when they are in opposition. So it's just the same principle. And another way of seeing they are in bad relationship, mainly they are in a square relations, like rat and rabbit, tiger, snake, and monkey. So it's like in a square relationship. And for some, in the compatibility table, it is said that horse with horse is not good, dragon, dragon, not good, pig and pig, rooster and rooster. But only these four animal signs, they are like not compatible with their own sign. But for the other three, they are in square relations. So here, you can see it clearly with the chart. So this is what we say about the six combination, like dragon and rooster, they are the metal combination, rabbit and dog, they're the fire combination. This is one of the good compatibility by using the six combinations. And then the group of trine, you can see rabbit, pig, and ram, they are the water sign. Okay, so they are in good relations. So it's so easy to check it out just using the same logic as in the Western astrology. And for bad compatibility, then it's easy if you find you are in the year which is in opposition to that year. For example, if you are a dog, then it is not good in the year of the dragon. So next year it would be the year of the snake. Then if you were born in the pig year, then it is not compatible. So this is very easy to understand. And for the other way, it is the square. So for example, rabbit and rat and rooster, then they are not in a good relations. So this is mainly the square relation. So this is not something very new if you know anything about Western astrology. They are just based on the same principle. So let's take a look for this year. This is year of the dragon. So if you were born in the year of dragon, or if you were born in the year of the dog, then you are not compatible with the commander of this year, the virtual god. So there will be some problems or obstacle in this year. So what do we do? So as you can say, the great commander, the virtual god, there is a kind of religious element in it. So if you are caught offending the commander because you are in the same side of the commander this year, or if you are in a bad aspect with the commander, then you can go to the temple and worship the commander. Here are some real pictures. That is the temple, and this is the dragon statue outside temple, and this is the commander. And if you go to a temple, of course, probably we have temples here in Asia, in the Chinese community. But then you can see there are these kind of virtual gods in the temple. And this is the statues, and they have some kind of rituals that you can do to worship the commander. So then the boss will be happy and you will be blessed. And so another way that I want to, which is kind of the point I want to bring out in this talk, is about how do we to make a better relation with the commander if you are offending him. So if you were born in the year of the dragon and you're offending the commander this year, then you can wear a talisman of good compatibility. So animals which is of good compatibility with dragon is rat, monkey, and rooster. So it's so easy that you can find any like charms, necklace, um, anything in these animals. You can wear anything like this. So that you will have good compatibility with the virtual god. And so then you can like kind of get rid of the bad luck. So you can see it's dragon, and so rat, rooster, monkey, they have good relation with dragon. So you can just wear any of this. And if you were born in the year of the dog, then this year you are offending the dragon as well. So you can find the animal which is of good compatibility with the dog, then you will like, for example, rabbit. Then you can wear a talisman or a charm or necklace of rabbit, then you will be blessed. So here now I want to compare the Western astrology and the Chinese astrology. How do we use remedies to balance the kind of bad luck or to improve the luck? So this is very interesting because when I first learned Western astrology, then when students or clients ask me, what should I do or what should I wear to improve my luck? Then I find it a little bit difficult to answer these questions because it seems that in Western astrology, there's not so much this kind of like remedies in improving the luck. And then later, when I have some information or learned a little bit about astrological magic, then there is still a little bit different from how the Chinese astrology way of using the remedy. In astrological magic, then you need to make a talisman. For example, if you have afflicted Venus, then you might want to make a fortunate Venus talisman to improve your Venus. Or if you have a very bad Saturn, then you may, I don't know, maybe you want to have a Jupiter talisman to counterbalance the Saturn, or have a Saturn talisman with Saturn in good dignity to balance your afflicted Saturn, or using herbs or rituals for doing the astrological magic. But then in Chinese astrology, it is a little bit easier, more simple, because you don't need to elect the time or to make a particular talisman. You just need to use like the animal, which is of good compatibility with your own. So it is like, even though you don't have that element in your birth chart, you can still use something like out there to make good use of that animal so you can bring you good luck. Or go to the temple to do rituals using feng shui, which is about your environment, then it is the way how the Chinese astrology way to do the remedies. And so here I just want you to brainstorm whether we can use the same principle applying to Western Zodiac or in Western astrology. So, for example, you were born in the year of the dragon, and this year you are going to have the Jupiter return. So in Western astrology, this is your Jupiter return, but in Chinese astrology, you are offending the commander, the virtual god. Then if you are in square with dragon opposition, like you are in the year of the dog, then you have bad fortune. So can we use this concept in the Western way? For example, dragon. For example, you're a dragon. Can you wear something like related to Gemini, related to Aquarius? It is kind of trying relationship and good compatibility with dragon, with Libra, even though you don't have any planets in Aquarius or Gemini. Whether we can use this idea to improve your luck as a remedy. So I'm open for discussion and for experiment.
Yeah, right. It's an interesting idea. I think we often kind of notice that even in Western astrology, there's an expectation that Jupiter return should be a positive thing, but I think many people report back that it ends up being a year of a lot of mixed fortune. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people feel quite overloaded with the amount of opportunity that finds them, or they find themselves in a position where things are kind of feel bigger. It's
Mm-hmm.
leaning maybe on the Jupiterian principle of enlarging things and making them seem bigger than normal. I was really taken by this last comment that you have here about finding something worth celebrating.
Yes.
Yeah, is there something you want to say about that?
Right. So in Western astrology, when you have a Jupiter return square opposition, that will be kind of obstacles or a kind of like difficulty. And why the Chinese astrology is saying when you are going back to the birth year, the sign, the same sign, then it is not so good because I think from the traditional point of view, no matter in which culture, that stability is the best thing.
Yeah.
Change is not good. So from this point of view, then they will say if you are going to make some change, so when Jupiter is back to the birth position, or you are going back to the birth year sign, then if you can do something worth celebrating, like a birth of a child or getting married or opening a business, then this is kind of positive change you can like actively bring in that year, so you can avoid something misfortune.
Hmm.
So you're actually doing something to make the change yourself instead of waiting for something else to come. So probably this is a way to avoid some misfortune.
Right. We have Jane, who said that in Hermetic astrology, there is mental alchemy, which focuses on thought remedies to
Hmm.
help counteract afflicted planets. And I think this is a principle that we see a lot in Western philosophical works about what we can do to mentally engage with our challenges, um,
Right.
mentally engage with points of misfortune, and as a result of either examination or meditation or prayer, perhaps begin to open and unlock. But even in that process, often there is talismanic work that's discussed alongside. So if you're going to have a meditative kind of process, thinking about
Mm,
uh, maybe this is a Saturnian principle you're focusing on. It might be that you light the wood of a Saturn tree or light incense of a scent that belongs to Saturn, maybe hold on to a talisman that corresponds. So, yeah, so I think that there's the wide range here, um, where there is maybe on some level an expectation that physical manifestations or representations of something can be assisting influences, but the change is going to need in some way to have to come from within, either through the mind or through one's actions or through the heart. Um, this reminds me of also Indian astrology and astrology that we
mhm.
see practiced in India. I could remember when Will Smith, I was doing this article on Will Smith and the ways in which his chart seems to be very closely tied and associated to the planet Saturn. And I found these articles about how he had found a guru in India that he really resonated with. And he was told by this astrologer that his Saturn was a problem, and he was given a number of mantras to say and spiritual practices, physical things that he would do with his body. Didn't necessarily, from what I could read in the article, suggest any kind of internal change or even external change or relationship with this. It was more about petitions almost in a way.
Right.
Kind of like when you would go to the temple and pray to the virtual God, for instance, for a bit of, easement on the stress that you're experiencing. So that I found that parallel interesting while you were speaking.
Yes, I think the Vedic is quite close to the Chinese astrology a little bit because in Vedic it seems that they have temples for each planet or each god.
Hmm.
That for Saturnian day you need to go to the Saturn temple to pray or to fast or do something Saturnian. So you can like engage in the Saturnian energy.
Hmm. Right. Wow. Wonderful. I don't see any other questions or comments coming through, but for those of you who are watching on the recording, if you have any thoughts about this, please feel free to share with us in the comments. Jupiter, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Right. So just one, if I want to invite you to brainstorm or to experiment, for example, say Jupiter is going to be in Gemini very soon. So can we wear something like Aquarius, Libra
Yeah.
related, like wear a scale,
Yeah, right.
maybe a water bottle, um, as a as a charm or whatever, a talisman. So is there some effect there, a remedial measure? I don't know, but so I just want to invite you to do the experiment and to brainstorm about it.
Yeah, try things out and see what happens. I love the photo that you've included of John Dee performing an experiment
Right.
with Queen Elizabeth. That's wonderful. Jupiter, thank you so much for walking us through the Chinese zodiac and its relationship to Jupiter and the year star. This was a very informative presentation. And if you had any advice, if people wanted to learn more, where would you send them?
Um, I have a website, so maybe I can put my website, the link in the YouTube under the
Yeah,
information bar.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Great. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining. And thank you, Jupiter. We'll go ahead and stop the recording now.